What's good, folks? We got more Cover One Senior Bowl action for you in this video. I am Anthony Prohaska, joined by Mr. Eric Turner. As you folks hopefully know by now, we have been at the Senior Bowl this week down in Mobile, Alabama. We uploaded a video yesterday after day one talking about several standout players on both sides of the ball. Myself, Eric, multiple members of the team really going through. Now we sit here after day two, and Eric and I wanted to break down several standouts with, Eric, we're at a point where we have a pretty good sample size
Yeah,
of the week
yeah.
so far. We've seen a lot of the repetitions, the matchups between players, sides of the ball, both teams, and we've seen several standouts on the national side, on the American side, a lot of guys that have caught our eye. And that's really where we want to focus in this video, kind of speaking of where we are after day two. So, Eric, I know where your head's at, but let the people know where your head is at for who has really caught your eye and who stood out to you right now.
Well, it's hard not to focus on the offensive line, and that's where I've kind of, had my eyes most of the week.
Mm,
And just given the Bills situation and some of the holes that are, we're going to see going into the offseason. So most of my concentration has been focused on the offensive line. And the last 2 days, really, a couple guys stood out when it comes to that. Bergeron from Syracuse. He's just an easy mover. It looks natural. Now, he's not the biggest guy. He's not like Wright or, Torrence for that
yeah.
matter, but he's more of an easy mover, natural athleticism. We got to see him inside at guard today. And
Yes.
I think,
Which
given his profile,
you've been championing for all
yes,
week.
yes,
Yeah.
immediately. When I saw him up close, and that's what's so fun about being down here.
Right.
You get to see these guys up close and, be down on the field before getting kicked off the field. Um, you get to see
Shout out.
these guys up close and personal. And immediately when I saw him yesterday, I said, man, he's got the profile of a guard, especially when you're talking some of the archetypes that the Bills like. And so he was, his easy movement was shown even when they bumped him inside today. There were some really nice combination blocks with him
Mhm.
and his teammates and just creating that displacement. Really a good athlete. And I think my favorite player being down here has been John Michael Schmitz of Minnesota. Like, man, there's so much to like about him. A former wrestler, which obviously I love, but we know that McDermott loves. So yeah,
The box.
he's a nasty finisher. We saw some of that today. He brings some juice too. On one of the long runs that he helped spring, you saw him fired up and giving high fives to his teammates. Very good versus when you think about centers and you see this guy up close, you're like, he's not all that like overbearing looking, but he's got the size, he's got the athleticism, and he's able to anchor versus power, which we saw in he talked about in the interview that we're going to be posting later about being able to sit on the insoles of your feet, the inner part of your feet, so you can anchor down and get, drop your center of gravity and anchor down.
All right, you're a former wrestler, as am I. So tell me, they always talk about leverage and all the things that helps you with football and how it translates. But I want to know from the shoulders up how it helps you, not just physically, but from the shoulders up.
Yeah, I mean, just understanding the way the body works at the end of the day, how you generate movement, how you generate power, and big thing is your body placement, like how much weight you want here and here, and especially out of your stance as a center, like you got to be locked and loaded in your stance, and it's kind of just like driving through the insteps of your feet, and definitely learned that a lot in wrestling. So yeah,
Absolutely. Now, going back last year, what is one skill, one trait, one tool that you added to your toolbox to help you this week and going to the next level?
yeah. I mean, I would just say clean up my footwork, and especially in pass pro. Yeah, that's what I'd just say. Just clean up my footwork and having a more consistent strike. That's what I would say.
And now, you guys ran a very diverse run scheme at Minnesota. Had some really good coaching there. So maybe what's one trait that maybe that was passed down from you from your coaches there that again you're going to be bringing to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite plays was outside zone at the University of Minnesota. I mean, and you saw a little bit here.
A lot.
And we got after
a lot.
it. We got after it today. So I mean, just the ability to understand like leverage and kind of like your hand placement when you go reach a guy. And yeah.
I appreciate it.
I thought he stood out today and yesterday, the first day of the Senior Bowl. So those two guys have really just been some of the most consistent players that we've seen. Now we've seen flashes from the other big names, But when you talk consistency, it's one of those things you have to monitor. Some guys are going to start the week off, not that good. And we're going to talk about some of those players probably. And some guys improve as the week,
Yeah.
goes on. And so I think these two guys started off on the right foot and then continued on the right foot in day two.
Schmitz really caught our eye initially yesterday as we were watching. So the American side is loaded with no disrespect to the national side, but they're loaded with
Hmm.
offensive line talent, and the trench battles have been like must see TV every time.
Yes.
It's I watched a lot of DBs and wide receivers today and running backs and linebackers. My eye kept like going over to
Yeah,
where the
yeah.
trenches were going on, like 'cause I wanted to see it. Yeah, Schmitz has been, I've kept my eye on him since yesterday, and obviously, you've really, banged the drum for him. But the torque ability
Hmm.
for me with him, like you get the anchor piece, but it's not just that. He gets the anchor and
And
then
the
bang,
finish.
yeah, like it's just finish after finish. He had a couple of nice plays today in team, downfield on screens. Like you're
Yes.
seeing the physicality and the strength, but also athleticism,
Hmm.
and that athleticism shows in the box, in the run game, but also downfield, which is a
Sure.
huge piece. Bergeron, we talked about a bit yesterday, and you elaborated on today. Darnell Wright is up there for me, not to continue on the offensive line, but Darnell Wright and Torrence, who Osiris Torrence, who we
Yeah.
posted videos on. And I think it also, too, is we've gotten lucky so far this week in the Senior Bowl where, we know offensive line is a
Hmm.
need at this point for the Buffalo Bills, and there's a good crop of prospects.
Yeah.
And this is just,
Overall, probably the
yeah,
best unit, right?
yeah.
Offensive line. It's hands down, like you said, must watch when it comes to practice. And they from top to bottom, there are different types.
Mm,
You have the guys that are positional, have that positional flexibility.
yes.
And it's been fun to watch. Traits, guys that just have traits and that need to get coached up a little bit, like
Yeah.
Dewan Jones.
Yeah.
So it was fun too because we're on the sideline. We were talking with Paul Alexander,
Mm,
who is obviously an offensive line guru, former coach. He's been through a bunch of clinics that we've studied.
mhm.
He's a guy that the offensive line community they really understand and go to for a lot of different resources when it comes to offensive line. He said he's got 7 guys working in the Senior Bowl here, and a lot of them are those bigger, longer guys. And now we're talking among each other, how much bigger tackles, for example,
Mhm.
how much bigger tackles have gotten the last few years,
Yeah,
and
for
how that why that type of length is good, but also why it can work against them.
yeah, that's such a good point because I think people often, and when I say people, I mean like the fans, like you see someone's like, man, like this guy's huge, like he would be fantastic, but there's complications that come with that size. Like sometimes you're just too clunky or your movements are too cumbersome and they lack the fluidity or it's hard to pair the length and the size with technique and or being able to pair all of that together. And you've seen from these, bigger guys more athleticism than they like rightfully should be able to
Hmm.
show according to like the laws of
Yeah.
physics. And that crop of talent, yeah, the offensive line for the Senior Bowl. And again, this is just the Senior Bowl. This doesn't take into account any underclassmen who are coming into
Hmm.
the draft. Like this offensive line class for this draft is shaping up well. And right now, because this is the early portions of the offseason draft period, it's really highlighted by what we're seeing
Hmm.
at the Senior Bowl. And this isn't even going into, the national team, the Cody Mocks of the world
Right.
and Patterson, who you
Hmm.
also like. Um, it seems like there's a lot of quality top end talent. And when I say top end, I mean first round, but also guys that if you can get them to fall to the second or potentially the third,
Hmm.
like you are getting quality, impactful linemen in 2023,
Yeah.
but potentially beyond.
Second round could be killer for some of these offensive linemen. And we're just, again, you're right, just talking about the guys here.
Yeah.
Like that second round, third round range, there's gonna be some really talented players. Guys that can start day one, but also guys that maybe it's year two where they start to flourish a little more. But let me ask you this:
Hmm.
of all the offensive linemen, who do you think is gonna be maybe the highest drafted, or maybe it's just your favorite here? Like, who's a guy that stood out to you when it came just to the offensive
I've like literally like
line?
every hour my answer has changed for the last 2 days. Right now I'm going to, no pun intended, I'm gonna go with Darnell Wright
Yeah,
from Tennessee. We gushed over him yesterday
yeah.
watching it. And so for those who, didn't see the videos yesterday for what we were posting on Twitter, yesterday and a good portion of today, we were on the field, on the
Yeah.
sideline. So when we were watching the trench battles and the one-on-ones with the offensive line and defensive line yesterday. We were what, like 10 feet away,
Mhm.
and just really you could hear the pads popping,
Mhm.
you could see the technique. And today, we went back into the stands, we had a different vantage point, and no matter where you are, Darnell Wright just continues to manhandle anyone
Yeah.
that he comes
Yeah.
up against. And, being at, 342 pounds, what he weighed in at this week, we've talked about this all week.
Mhm.
He carries it so well.
Yeah.
Almost like, Bergeron's smaller, but Bergeron's so athletic for being 320 something pounds. And you can say the same thing about Wright.
Right.
Like, and he's so big and he's a mauler, but he also has technique and athleticism and good footwork and hand
Mhm.
technique and hand placement and power. And what really sealed it for me today was we've seen how physically dominant he's been, paired with the technique and
Sure.
athleticism. But then I spoke to him after practice today. I posted one of the pieces of it up on Twitter today. The intelligence that he spoke with. I
Yeah.
asked him.
That was impressive.
It was so impressive. I asked him a couple of questions, and one of them I asked was his film prep process, and he talked about just the way he categorizes pass
Mhm.
rushers and puts them into buckets, and then after he identifies who goes into what bucket for that week for the upcoming opponent, he then reps different techniques in his sets that week in practice to prep for that
Yeah.
opponent.
That
Like,
was wild.
it was tremendous,
Yeah.
like an absolute piece of, because if everyone when you get to the NFL is talented or
Sure.
has size or something, but it's that mental game that separates the bad from the good and the good from the great and the great from Hall of Fame and
Yeah.
generational and all that. And you pair that with being at a premium position, I think he could continue
I
to
have a little
grow.
way I break down. I kind of put people into a couple categories. Like, so I have three categories. I'll go speed, power, and finesse.
Okay.
And throughout the week, I'll just kind of watch people, and then as Tuesday and Wednesday, that's our work weeks
Yep.
in college. So Tuesday, Wednesday rolls around, I'll try to at least have an idea of what categories those guys in. Like, for example, I may put somebody into the speed and finesse category. So throughout the week, all of my sets and everything in practice, I'll try to mimic that.
That interview was phenomenal, and you'll see some of that even more on social media as the night goes on. But to have a player say that to you and you ask him about, hey, his study process, how he studies film, and for him to say, as the week progresses, I plug these pass rushers into certain buckets, almost like checking the box, like, okay, on
Mhm.
this rep he did this, on this rep he did that, and then, stacking it with the type of sets he's going to use or technique he's going to use against this guy, like that is next level stuff.
Yes.
And the fact that he thinks in that way, it just takes that physically talented player that you see with your eyes to a whole nother level. And honestly, we wouldn't be able to do that if we weren't here and allowed to talk to these
Yes.
players, which is why this event is the number one event, in my opinion, when it comes to the NFL draft
Mhm.
process. It's just so refreshing to be able to go talk to these players and have some time
Yeah.
to find out things like that. And, it really gives you a peek behind the curtain because, we study film as much as anyone,
Mhm.
but really, film is maybe a quarter of the actual evaluation process
Mhm.
because the biggest deciding factor, like you said, to someone succeeding and not, is usually from the shoulders up.
Yeah.
It's usually their inner drive, it's usually their ambition, and it's usually how well they want to be a pro and how
Yeah.
they develop those habits. And that those type of habits that he was discussing with you, he's ahead of the game.
Yes.
So you see what he can do on film. He's phenomenal. He's great. But that stuff right there, that's the good stuff. Like that's
Yes.
gonna make him, like you said, one of those top tier players, not just a middling average player in the league.
Yes. That the ability to, and because to do all that, before we move on to like our next piece here, the ability to do all that, that means you are identifying technique in your opponent, but then also relating it back to how you play as a
Hmm.
player, like the football IQ
Yeah.
that takes, in addition to the work ethic and all those pieces, it's tremendous. And, again, like you said, that's a huge piece for the draft process. We know last year how, important the interview process was for Kyrie Elam becoming
Hmm.
a Buffalo
Hmm.
Bill. And so us being here, like you said, it gives us that access to peek into the mind of these players and pair it together with what we're seeing from the film
Yeah.
evaluation, put that whole picture together. And, so Darnell Wright, someone for me who has really climbed up. Let's flip it to kind of the other side.
Yeah.
Who's somebody today on day two that caught your eye today that maybe you weren't coming into day two thinking about, and they flashed in some way or performed in some way that you're sitting here right now or maybe later on tonight thinking like, man, like, so and so really had a day today.
Mm, that's a tough one. It's hard because like I know we want to flip the other side of the ball, but Michael Wilson
Mm,
was another. I just have to talk about him because he's not when you watch him. whether you're in person or on film, he doesn't look like he's a major separator, which
Mm.
we're talking Bills. Like, I think that's what the Bills need.
Yes.
But he does separate, but he just does it in different ways, and usually it's technique. At the line of scrimmage, he's using those rip moves, and he's a well-built wide receiver. Like, we looked at him like he looks the
Yes.
part, is what we said. We
Yes.
literally mimicked each other saying that. He looks the part as that receiver, and he can win at the line of scrimmage off whether he's against press or off. He wins at all three levels. I'll just say that and he uses his body and physicality if he needs to. He uses his eyes, which is one thing I asked him about during the interview. Using your eyes as a wide receiver is such a nuanced thing to route running and separating at the college level or the NFL level that I don't know, not many guys talk about or even teach for that matter, because your eyes are so important, not just, when you're down the field tracking the ball, but at the line of scrimmage, in your route stem, and then again at the catch point. And so I do think one area he does need to improve on is at the catch point. He's had some drops, and we saw one today where he didn't frame it properly on an over route off a play action. He framed it like this instead of just framing it, which he would have caught it. And I heard him talking to his agent and talking to him about what happened there. And so I think the eyes for a wide receiver, I think that is something that we should start studying even more because it's so important at all three levels of a route. So I think he stood out a little bit yesterday, and then today, again, just kind of reinforced another consistent showing from him. But again, he's not a guy that's gonna separate a lot until the top of the break, and that's what he was doing really well. He can run those routes with multiple stems, and then separate at the top on those comeback routes. Like he ran some of the nastiest, comeback routes I think the last couple of days. But he just stood out. I thought he's flashed, and I know, and it really doesn't fit maybe what the Bills need. But it's hard for me to look away for a guy that's so technical and can win, even though he's probably not going to run all that.
Pleasure.
Had a great week this week so far, man. Talk to me about how important your eyes are as a wide receiver to winning at the next level.
Yeah, so eyes, I think I kind of take that a few different ways. Eyes in terms of at the line of scrimmage, understanding the leverage that the DB is playing, right? So if the DB is playing outside leverage, I'm probably not going to force outside release. I'll give what he's taking me. Then eyes go hand in hand with identifying safeties, because that usually determines the coverage or can give you a toe, the coverage, and then eyes focusing on the ball. Normally, you've heard it a lot of times, like receivers catch with their eyes, not their hands. So
absolutely
looking at the ball, looking it in.
Okay, so when you're facing an opponent, a corner coming up, what are you looking for on film when you're studying that guy?
Yeah, so I look for a few things. Tendencies is my biggest one. I like to do my own scouting report every week of the DB that I'm going against. Kind of go through his size, how many years he's played, how many games he's played, what year he is. I go back to his high school, look at how he was in high school. Tendencies, is he a guy that likes to be physical at the line? Is he a guy that's like the soft shoot? And then just how he is after a play. Like, is he going to be talking shit, or is he kind of just a guy that is just kind of laid back and chill? Because those are the things that you have to mentally prepare for. And I think that can give me kind of a key of what to expect in the game.
And that's been our biggest concern with him. Like, where does he run in the 40? Where does he time with his actual measurables? Because you can tell he's going to be on like the slower end of the spectrum. But and I don't want to make this comment because he's not the same player, but it brings me, and we had this conversation earlier today, like it brings me back to the whole Drake London conversation last year, where people are like, well, he's not running the 40 because he's slow, and if he runs it, he's going to be in like the 4.6s, and he's slow, he's not going to be able to separate. And Drake London doesn't separate with speed, he separates with technique, and he could do it at the line, at the catch point, and in the breaks, and his stem, like the ability to separate at multiple points on multiple routes. And then Drake London came in as a rookie and did that. Not saying Wilson is that player, don't want to put that expectation onto him, but it is possible to win and separate even without having, this blazing speed, which isn't necessarily, a needed piece, because you can win with that technique. I love the eyes piece that you mentioned. Again, we talked about it today. You see that a lot we've seen Stephon Diggs do it this year. We've seen Dawson Knox do it. Just the slight ability to be like, yeah, I'm going over here, just to get the corner to be like, oh yeah, what's over there? And then when he looks, and then you break it off.
Right. Like on that post route today he ran.
Yes.
He used his eyes, and then he's tracking the ball. He's hitting the goal line. It's a deep pass. He's looking up. Okay, he locates the ball. Then he looks ahead, and this is that play speed element. He looks up. Okay, ball's incoming. That's your trajectory. And then he looks forward because he's at the goal line. He's like, okay, he calculates how much more room he has, and then adjusts his line to the ball in the back of the end zone, catches it for a
Yes.
touchdown.
Yes. We both posted that clip today.
Yeah.
And, if you go to the Twitter page of myself or, the Cover One Twitter page, you can see it. He's literally running like this way on the post. And then because he judges the ball, like Erik said, and then looks and see what he has, he goes from being here and then rounds it and changes his path to then track it all in the blink of an
Yeah.
eye. And that's
Against a really good player in Moss, our boy, Riley Moss.
Riley Moss
Yeah.
had a good day. Like he lost him, he shook him, he tracked the ball, he finished it. That was a very good play from him. And again, he was able to do it because he separated early in the route with the deception he created with his eyes. Like that ability, yeah, he had a good day today. I was impressed with him. Mine in that similar category of someone who caught my eye more. Granted, I was looking for him a little bit more for coming into this week. I thought Jonathan Mingo had a good day
Yes.
today. We had some speed concerns about him
Yeah.
yesterday. But he's measured in between 6'1" and 6'2", 226 pounds. He's big, he's strong, he's athletic. When you put on the tape, he's an Old Miss wide receiver. So the technicality isn't always there because there's such a heavy RPO offense. But he's the guy that you give him something on a bubble screen or a slant and he breaks a tackle and it's a house call. But today we saw some of that deception in his route running. We saw some separation. We saw a couple really good reps against Kansas State corner Julius Brents, who has been phenomenal.
Who was
this
probably
week.
like the top player yesterday overall. Everyone came away, like you try to get an interview with him, everyone's swarming him.
Yes.
Like he was probably one of the better players, if not the top player yesterday. And then going in today, we saw it was a good battle between those two.
It was back and forth. Russell Brown of Cover One, our lead draft guy, had Brent's marked for this week and for the whole draft process, and he was spot on. Like you said, Brent's crushed it yesterday, had a good day today. He and Mingo battled, and Mingo got the better of him. And it wasn't just, because he was bigger, stronger, faster. He used technique. He used some nuance in his stems and his breaks. And when you pair that with that athleticism, that gives me hope for a guy like that because you know where he's lacking based on the system he's coming from. And already we're midweek in the Senior Bowl, and he's already shown improvement. And I think that's tremendously exciting for his draft process.
Yeah, to see his type of route stems and how he handles press versus off, it's a little different than probably what he faced, especially in the offense that he played in at Ole Miss. So to see him use some of that technique and for him to show it, to show it to scouts, because it's something that I was surprised to see because initially, again, he didn't really flash for me initially. He's earned my respect, especially against, again, one of the top corners down here in Mobile and Brent's there. Honestly, he's kind of similar to Wilson where he when he needs to use that physicality, he can. And that throw by. Brent's was in his hip pocket along this far sideline, and he knew he was running a comeback or stop route, and so he just do a nice throw by and just threw him by and came back to the ball. It was beautiful. Yeah. But our guy AJ, he interviewed him after practice today, and he admitted he's like, I went back to square one. He's like, I went back to the film. I watched what they did, what he did versus me, what type of player he is, and he's like, then I came back prepared, and it showed today, man. Much like Wright, to think that way. Yeah, those are the guys you want. Yeah. That's showing signs of a pro.
Yes.
Right?
And he knows the importance of this week and every day. So he's already like, I'm going to put in extra work and I'm going to scout the guys who I'm going to be matched up against each day in practice and then attack them based off of that.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff. Like, check out the interview on AJ's profile.
JJ Spolsky from Cover One here with Jonathan Mingo after a day 2 practice. How do you think you performed today?
I think I did pretty good. I'm just trying to keep stacking good days on top of good days to try and prove myself to the scouts, show them the type of receiver I am.
In the one-on-ones against Brent, you made a really good move. So talk about that route, if you remember it, and what you did to break free.
Really, I was studying him yesterday. He was kind of like more of a mirror type DB, but he tried to switch it up today. He tried to be hands at the line, try to jab me, so he threw me off my initial release, but I was just trying to recover. So he was a little bit behind me, and I knew I had like a comeback route. A stop route, trying to come back down my stem. So I had him going, and I was just trying to throw him back down, so I go down my stem. My hands was a little high. I should have got my hands on the back plate towards the hips more, but I got it kind of toward the top of his shoulder. But it's a good route, just trying to compete. He's a good corner.
What is your approach to guys like him that are taller and lengthier? How do you approach taller cornerbacks, DBs?
I'm just trying to use my size against them. Like, they're longer, but I feel like I'm stronger and quicker than most of them. So he's a strong corner, long hands. Try to use his hands for his leverage. That's an advantage he has. So next time, just trying to catch his hands and just use it against him.
And obviously in Ole Miss, you did a lot of those RPOs, design screens, had the yards after the catch. Is that something that you want to continue to show, and bring to the NFL with you, that yards after the catch aspect of your game?
Oh yeah, I feel like it's a strong part of my game. It still has to be showcased. I don't feel like I showcase all of it in college, but the NFL team that gets me there, get to see it soon. So this is another aspect of my game I'm trying to show everybody.
And last one, do you care or have a preference of where you line up on the field?
As long as I'm out there just trying to help my team win, whatever coach want me, I'll be there.
So that really was impressive, again, from the shoulders up and hearing that. But I thought, he won in several different ways. He's able to get, outside release and cut back over on some dig routes, use that physicality when he needed to. And he was he was able to separate in ways that he needs to, in this at the college level and the NFL level.
Yeah, and that's what, he's an example of someone that's what these players are looking to do this week. You're not only trying to, test your mettle against top level competition, but there are players who, maybe haven't been able to showcase certain things because of the team or system, that they play for or come from. And sometimes that can get conflated with, well, they can't do this. And it's not that they can't do it, it's that they just haven't had the opportunity.
They weren't
to
asked to do it.
Exactly. And so this week is important for them because they're going to be asked to do things. You'll get outside corners that, we want to kick you inside the slot and see if you can do that. Or you've been playing safety, cool. What Jartavius Martin from Illinois is a great example. He played slot and safety at Illinois. He's been working an outside corner this week. That's just, we want to throw you into these situations and see what you can do. Roger McCreary last year, they threw him in the slot a bunch in that week. And to be able to see how you perform in those areas can be tremendously impactful towards impacting your draft stock and then what teams think of you and or see from you in this week. It impacts everything going forward. Speaking of going forward, tomorrow, another day at the Senior Bowl here for the team. What are you watching for? Who are you watching for? Is it, more of the guys you already love? Is it somebody that you're potentially down on a little bit? You're seeing if they can rebound? Where is your mind or your head at as, we look forward towards tomorrow?
Yeah, it's hard again with the Bills, the way that the roster is structured and things are coming up. It's hard to veer away from wide receivers and offensive line. And unfortunately, I will only be there for the first practice for the national practice. So I think when it comes to that, I'm still going to stick with some of the wide receivers there because I have done a lot of work on the offensive line. But it's the most fun position to study, especially if you're watching live and getting to see those one-on-ones.
It's the highlight, like the wide receiver DB battles and the trench battles one-on-one for O-line, D-line are like that's the pay-per-view main event.
Yeah, because again, the one-on-ones for wide receivers versus DBs, it's just set up for failure for those defensive backs. Like, Chris Smith, your guy Smith, I mean, he was another guy that kind of stood out again today, especially against some of the top receivers down here in Mobile. They're really not set up for success, and to see them still hold it down is, again, it's a testament to them and their ability. And he showed out. So I'm probably going to stick with some of the wide receivers, but I do want to bounce around a little more again because I'm only going to be able to make it to one practice before we get out of here.
Yeah, I'm leaving early tomorrow, and that'll kind of wrap up the week for this team. But it's been, and we really want to continue to drive home the importance of the Senior Bowl, not just for the NFL, but also for the Buffalo Bills, a team that have routinely dipped into the Senior Bowl prospect pool. Just the lowest hanging fruit, Josh Allen, like being one of those pieces. They value this week. They value this game. So everything that we were able to see this week, everything that we're able to provide from myself, you, Greg, AJ, David, Russ, the whole crew that's been here all week, this week starts to plant those seeds for what we're going to see moving forward in this offseason, because a lot of where the Bills are led to, comes from the Senior Bowl, because they value that experience. They value this added level of getting to speak to these guys, now and then future combine. It lays the groundwork for a lot of what they do.
And to your point, early on during this regime, they leaned on it heavily percentage-wise. There's a lot of guys plucked in the draft and as undrafted free agents early on. But as the years have gone by and that roster became more rounded out, like a lot of guys, maybe that percentage went down a little bit as far as guys they brought in. But again, this is a pivotal year. There's some
Yeah.
big contracts on the horizon. There's some big moves that need to be made, decisions that need to be made. So maybe they do pivot it to a little more and lean on it a little more because, because of the way the roster is constructed and it's going to fall this offseason. So
Yeah. And then that's also something, that we've talked about, the idea of having rookies in 2023 that could be more impactful in 2023 instead of being like, well, we'll see what they can do, but this is
yeah,
more of a look towards 2024,
sure,
2025 type of thing. In theory, that could work hand in hand with, who's more NFL ready. You have the idea of like a senior, someone who has that experience, has more tape available.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a hugely
And they
impactful
care
year.
about that. They do, like you said, from top to bottom. The Senior Bowl is an important event, and part of the reason why we want to come down here every year. And there, there are some things. Having moved it from Lad People Stadium
Mhm.
to South Alabama Stadium, that they need to work on as far as the event goes. But overall, as always, giving us access to these players,
Mhm.
I mean, this is your first time down here,
Yeah,
man. It's a testament to you. Like, you can tell them like how cool this experience
yeah.
is.
It's been unreal. The ability to see what we're seeing again, given the importance of this week and the prospects that are here and how they're going to impact this draft and the future of the NFL. Us having that firsthand practice experience to really pair what we've seen on film from the digital vantage point and get it live and in
Mhm.
person, being able to see what they actually look like, how they actually move, how they perform, and how they play, and then the access to speak to them and
Yeah,
get the peek into their brain and into their mind because
right.
again that's so important and formative in determining who they're going to be as players. This week has been,
And then just bumping into people from the NFL all around
yes,
town.
all the time.
Whether it's just people you just met on Twitter and you engage with on
Yeah,
Twitter, or again, NFL brass, NFL personnel,
yeah,
NFL players, former players. Some of those experiences are things that you're gonna go back home and tell your friends and family about. And you're like, man, that event was so much fun because of those little nuggets that you learn from, bumping into Brian Dable pretty much every
yep,
night. And then
literally.
Shea Tierney, like them knowing us and like giving us a shout out and everything like that, and appreciating the work
Yeah,
we do. So it's a great experience from top to bottom. And again, we are wrapping this up, but it's another thing. Next year, we'll be back down here again.
most definitely. This is an absolute must for our process and our evaluation and tying things together, being able to provide you folks with as complete and as comprehensive a picture as possible as we go through the offseason every year for the Buffalo Bills. Eric, any last thoughts, words, anything on your mind as we wrap this up?
No, no, this was fun. Another great experience, as we just said. And I'm glad that, you were able to come down here
Yeah,
this
man.
year. And I mean, we were rolling deep, we were
Yes.
rolling deep here in Mobile. And it's, again, it's just been so much fun. And we appreciate all the engagement from you guys and hope that you enjoy some of the interviews that we're going to be dropping and content dropping this off season because it's
Yeah.
just beginning.
Yeah, it's
It's
really
just
just
beginning.
beginning. This is like the first of the dominoes to fall that leads then into free agency and then to the combine and the draft and all these pieces. So tremendously important here. Well, actually flip, it'll be combine before free agency. But yeah, the offseason is in full swing for the Buffalo Bills and shortly for the rest of the NFL. And we will have you covered here for anything and everything you need for the Buffalo Bills. You know us here at Cover One. So if you enjoyed this video, please and thank you. Drop a like on this. Hit that subscribe button to the channel. We have you covered every single day of the week with anything and everything imaginable for the Buffalo Bills. And like Eric said, this is just the first of many pieces to come this offseason, and it lays an important piece of the groundwork. And we'll have you covered every single day, week, month of this entire offseason leading into the 2023 season for the Buffalo Bills. So, for myself, Anthony Prohaska, for Eric Turner, this has been a recap of day one and day two of the Senior Bowl here from the Cover One team. Enjoy your nights. Thank you for tuning into this episode, and we'll see you next week.